Okay, so it's 6:03 p.m. and I'll call this March meeting of the Climate Action Planning Committee to order. Welcome, everybody. Um, I'll do a quick round, a roll call and introductions by name because it really helps with processing the transcripts later. So I'm Alex Asha, the chair. Let's go to my right in the room.
I'm Kai Mueller, the Municipal Energy Manager of Milton.
I'm Hale Smith.
Rob Israel, I work on conservation stuff.
I'm Avante, the Assistant Planning Director at the town.
Great. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Avante.
Avante.
Mhm.
All right, and online, we start with Kim.
Hi, I'm Kim Johnson.
Kyle Johnson.
Matt Canucci.
Maggie Oldfield.
Steve Popkin, who works on transportation.
Great. I think there are a few others on, but they may be otherwise disposed at the moment. Anna Morgan Bersamian is on. Okay, wonderful. So let's kick it off with item 2 on the agenda, vote to approve the February 2026 meeting minutes. Did anybody have any questions or corrections to offer for the meeting minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain motions to approve the meeting minutes.
Move to approve. Second.
Okay, Matt moved to approve and Ron seconds. All opposed. All right, all in favor. Let the record show that. Well, all abstaining.
I was
I
on.
wasn't here, so.
Okay, Maggie and Hale are abstaining. Now I have to count. Let's see. That's enough. So the 6 votes in favor. Meeting minutes are approved. Wonderful. Okay. Now, next item on the agenda is our energy manager's update. And so Kai has several things to share with us. I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you. So the first item I'd like to provide an update on is good news. Yesterday, we received confirmation from the Department of Energy Resources, the State Department of Energy Resources, that the town had been selected for a grant for a battery storage feasibility study at Town Hall and the fire headquarters. And the name of the program is Advancing Massachusetts Power, AMP. There are different program tracks. We'd applied to the program track to fund a feasibility study, which we were now approved for. And the second step of this would be an application for the actual implementation grant, which would mean money for the battery storage system. From what I understand in the funding documents, the second step, the implementation grant application, which has a deadline of August of this year, the implementation grant would only cover up to 75% of the total battery cost, which means that the remaining 25% would And I have to say that I haven't fully confirmed this yet, but this is based on my current reading of the funding document. 25%, the remaining 25% would have to be covered by the town, and whatever is not covered in terms of technical analysis by the feasibility study, which means the actual design documents, what the battery storage system would look like, that I believe would also have to be covered by the town. So even if we were successful in getting a couple of $100,000, up to a couple of $100,000 for a battery to store electricity, for power outages, but also to as a revenue source at town hall and or fire headquarters. Those costs would be in majority covered by the grant, but there would be some costs that the town would also have to cover. I have 6 more items, but I'm happy to take questions on each item that I present.
Can you say more about the content of the study and who designed it? Who designed the proposal?
We will receive the study in the coming weeks. The study will be conducted between March and June. So what we received confirmation for is not the study itself, but the funding for the feasibility study.
Were there goals for the study?
Yeah, the goals would be to determine whether and where and how a battery storage system would make sense between town hall and the fire headquarters, between and or next. So I'm hoping to get answers, for example, on whether it makes sense to have one big battery storage system for both town hall and the fire headquarters, or whether separate batteries would make more sense, or whether one site out of the 2 here is more suitable than the other. Also, what the revenue projections would look like, what it would look like in terms of compatibility with the upcoming solar panels at the fire headquarters, but because that's also something we're making progress on. A solar power purchase agreement with Select, the company Select. And that would be in third-party ownership. They will provide us electricity at a fixed rate, at a very advantageous rate for 20 years. And how does that work in conjunction with the battery storage? Those are some of the questions I hope that the feasibility study can answer.
So the storage would be for the town hall and fire department only,
Yes,
and the revenue would come in how? How would there be revenue?
there could be revenue, for example, by joining programs that the utilities run, which encourage load management. I think that's the correct term. When the demand on the grid is very high, then the battery could release any electricity that it has stored at higher prices, and that revenue of the sold electricity would come back to the town. And I understand that it's not always one-to-one, but mostly the majority of the actual electricity stored would come back to the town in form of revenue. Yeah. And the alternative, and that's also something I would like to get answers on, is to have it as exclusively as a backup source of power. Now, batteries, unlike diesel emergency generators, unless they're designed very, very large, they can only provide backup electricity for a couple of hours as opposed to a couple of days. It kicks in quicker which means that it's more effective and for electronic systems or IT systems, but it can only provide backup electricity for a couple of hours. And one needs to, I think there's a trade-off between always having the maximum amount of electricity available for potential backup versus viewing it as a potential source of revenue and selling some of the electricity in high demand periods. I hope the feasibility study will provide some answers on that.
I can also if it's similar to or if it's the same as what they do for the residential program for battery storage, like Eversource, for example, they have some helpful resources on their website that show like what the average like earnings are for someone who participates in that sort of program. That could be helpful for if anyone on the committee is interested to see that. And then Kai, one question I had was, I think I know the answer to this, but are there any state or federal are there any other state or federal credits that come into play for the portion that we would have to pay for the 25%?
From what I understand, maybe. So I know that there still is a pathway to make use of the federal tax credits for renewable energy. And I believe that still applies to battery. However, as of the beginning of this year, it became much, much more complicated because of federal restrictions on foreign parts in the components of these clean energy products. And on the state level, there would be incentives, not necessarily tax incentives, but incentives in the form of smart payments. So the state would incentivize electricity sold from batteries. But apart from this grant that we would be aiming for in August, I don't know of any additional state grants that could cover those 25%. That's something I would have to look into.
Will the study be completed in time to apply for the implementation grant in August?
Yes, that's the way they lined up the program timelines.
Okay.
Yeah, any more questions? I do have a couple of more items. So
Let's continue.
the other thing I'd like to present to the Iowa Action Planning Committee are town meeting articles for the May 5th, I believe it is, town meeting. And I'm only gonna, because of the lack of time, I can only provide you like a verbal explanation without going into the exact wording or the details of the articles. And from what I understand, they might still be subject to change, but this is broadly speaking what will be presented. And the town meeting articles, as of now, can be split into two topics. One is an authorization for solar net metering credit agreements. And maybe I can read the exact wording. It would be in Article 2, and I quote, "To see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to enter into agreements for the purchase of electricity and or solar credits from any renewable energy facility on such terms and conditions and for such term of years as the select board shall deem in the best interest of the town." And the reason for this article is that the town is in negotiations with a solar company, which would provide so-called solar net metering credits, which is basically a discount of roughly 17% on electricity for the town. And the reason why this article is necessary is that, from what I understand, the town meeting would need to approve any longer term contracts. And this article would provide the authorization for such a long-term contract, because over 10 or 25 years, there would be this agreement for the discounted electricity from a solar facility. So that's this first topic, and then there's a second topic related to town articles, but you might have questions on this.
Is this organization related to Solar Simplified? Have you ever heard of that organization?
The company is named Rewild. Wild, one word.
What are the risks to the town embedded in a contract of that kind?
So I think one could think of many risks that the lawyers, the town lawyers, or the company hired by the town has been looking at. For example, what happens if the solar facility does not produce as much energy as it said it would, and how and if would there be compensation? From what I understand, there would be compensation. There are protections around that. Another potential risk is that the town commits to purchasing these solar net metering credits, which are basically equivalent to demand volumes of electricity for 20 or 25 years, and suddenly the electricity usage of the town goes back, and we have all these excess net metering credits that the town doesn't need. It's something which actually happened to some towns in Massachusetts. That risk was addressed by contract. We will only cover, I think, 80% was the last number I remember, 80% of the current town electricity consumption through these net metering credits, which means that even under the scenario that the town reduced its electricity consumption by 20%, we would still have no excess credits. And I personally think that it's far more likely that electricity consumption will go up in the coming years because of the transition from gas heating to electric heating. Those are two of the main risks I can.
And this covers municipal electricity consumption,
Correct.
Not residential.
Not residential, not business. Yep.
This is just municipal?
This would just be the municipality's electricity consumption.
So this would not, for example, have anything to do with our town community electricity aggregation.
Correct.
Yeah.
Wait, can I ask a question?
Yep.
This is 25 years, the standard. Have other towns embarked on this length of contract? 25 years is a long time, and a lot can happen in 25 years. Is there an opportunity to do like a trial for a shorter term and then with an extension opportunity?
So please don't rely on the 25-year number. It's 20 or 25. In any case, it is a long commitment. Other towns do use it. It's a widespread practice. I have not heard of a trial. The discount rate of 17.5% on electricity that we would be getting is actually exceptionally good in today's market. From what I've been told from what we were told today, 12% is more common, 13%, and maybe 5 or 10 years ago, 17% was still possible, but less so today. So it is a good way of cutting electricity costs if one manages the net metering credits properly. They would have to be allocated on a regular basis to the town's different electricity accounts.
Would that be part of your role?
I don't know yet.
Yeah.
Any more questions on this topic?
I think in the interest of time, you should probably, should be,
The second topic around town meeting articles are authorizations related to solar panels. And I was not privy to the exact deliberations around this, but similarly to the solar net metering credit agreement, these solar power purchasing agreements, they sound very similar. They are similar, but in some ways, but they're also different in other ways. The second topic of solar PPAs, power purchasing agreements, is when a third party installs solar panels on town property and sells the electricity from those solar panels to the town at a fixed price over several years. For example, Select, the company we're working with, they proposed in their projections, in their proposal they sent to us, they said that over 20 years, they could sell us electricity at 5 cents per kilowatt hour every year. Which means, 5%, 5 cents per kilowatt hour is a very good rate today because the electricity price the town is paying, I believe currently is 28 cents. So it would be a huge saving. And on top of that, with inflation and increasing electricity prices, those 5 cents will pay off even more in 10 or 15 years. Now, the 3 locations which were being prioritized for these solar PPAs are the animal shelter, the fire headquarters, and the public library. And the town article on this would say something along the lines of, it's a long and complicated article in legalese, so I'll try to paraphrase. It would be a vote to authorize whether the town can transfer some of the parcel on which this solar panel is to be installed over to the company, the solar company, only for the purpose of leasing. So it would not be an ownership transfer, it would be a lease of leasing the portions of the property to use it for solar panels. And those solar panels would only be for the use to produce electricity for the town. So those are the town articles that will also be proposed at the town meeting.
now, if I understand correctly, I think most of the solar panel installations that are on our school buildings are also done the same way with long-term power purchase agreements. Were there similar town meeting articles for those installations?
That's a good question, and I don't know. I would expect that, yes, there would have been the same articles 15 or 20, similar articles 15 or 20 years ago, but I don't know that. It's a good question.
it always helps to know that this is something we've done before and have some experience with.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if we've done it before. I don't know 100%, but I feel like the panels on Town Hall and maybe Cunningham, the town owns.
Correct.
So if the town owns the panels, then we didn't have to get into a lease agreement.
Correct.
So this is the town is not going to be owning the solar panels. So that's why we need a lease agreement. So
Correct.
they did the warrant committee talked about this the other night, and I didn't unfortunately catch the whole meeting. But one member did a comparison is as if the town should buy the solar panels and own it, just like we do the ones on Town Hall and Cunningham, versus leasing. And he said, of course, it would be an outlay of expenditures to install, purchase and install, but over the lifetime, the town would get more money, would keep more money. Like long term, it's financially better. Short term, it's an outlay of money. So I'm not sure which direction the warrant committee's going on this. I don't think they took a vote one way or the other. But as this one member said, it's like leasing a car versus buying a car. It's always a little bit better to buy. So I don't know enough about it to have an opinion. So that's why I was asking you and your experience is one way.
Yeah. My personal opinion is that yes, there is a clear financial advantage for a town to own the renewable or the clean energy facilities, whether it's batteries or solar panels, because it does pay off significantly more. However, over the past months, I've also looked into the amount of labor that would be involved in pulling off the scenario in which the town would own the solar panels, and it would be a very large and complex undertaking, especially with the federal tax situation. And so in light of the complexity and the limited staff in a small town like Milton, as opposed to maybe a Worcester, they have a very successful model, but they have dozens of employees. They have their own sustainability department. I'm a part-time energy manager. And they were able to figure it out. But for a small town, and I've been speaking with many different people, municipal experts and energy experts, and my conclusion is that maybe unfortunately, with the limited resources, this solar PPA, especially with timeline constraints around federal tax credits, was the best way forward. The solar PPAs were the best way forward. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So, any more questions on this?
One question with the solar PPA, will over time, as the technology gets better, would the company then potentially replace the panels that they put on with better technology or fix it when they break versus, if the town owned it, that we would have to have another outlay to replace the actual panels?
Yes, I mean, for the time of the contract, the company would be responsible for maintaining the minimum production volume of solar electricity. And if a panel or an inverter breaks, it would be their responsibility to fix it at no cost to the town. And to your point of what would happen in the town-owned scenario, if a component breaks, then it would be the town's responsibility to fix it. And unfortunately, at Collicott Cunningham, the inverter has been broken for, I believe, 1 or 2 years now. And it has been broken for that long and not fixed because an inverter costs $110,000. Yeah. That's another downside of the town-owned scenario.
It's like when you own a car, you can get more uh, financial benefit out of it, but you have to put more energy into maintaining it.
Yep. The next item I'd like to address is the climate leader community application. So Milton has been a green community as designated by the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources since 2010, one of the first green communities and one of the municipalities which has actually received most dollars of all in Massachusetts. And now, thanks to the effort of all of you and others in Milton, we're very close to submitting an application to become not a green community, but a climate leader, which is a step up in the status and which would unlock additional funding. The application deadline is the end of June. The town has already fulfilled 4 of the 6 criteria. 2 are remaining and in works. The remaining 2 are a zero emissions vehicles first policy, which is being worked on, and a municipal decarbonization roadmap, which would lay out how the town, and not the town with residents and companies, but just the town property more narrowly, would decarbonize by 2050. So that's just a quick update, and I can answer questions on that.
So if I can't remember if we've talked about this at previous meetings, but we have a grant from DOER to work with consultants on the municipal decarbonization roadmap, and that's in progress.
Correct, that's in progress.
Okay, and what's the timeline for completing that?
The roadmap will be completed by April 20th, according to our consultant Power Options.
Okay, April 27. And that the scope of that is just to identify the fossil fuel systems on town properties, estimate their lifespans, and get kind of a timeline of when we expect these decision points of needing to replace them with electric alternatives to happen so that we can be prepared.
Exactly.
And it does not include like a full feasibility study, cost estimate.
Yeah,
That's something that you learn which ones are coming first, and then you work backwards to and make sure that you are ready with that information when the time comes.
exactly. What this municipal decarbonization roadmap does is provide a bird's eye view of which critical fossil fuel equipment is likely to come to the end of its life in the near term or longer term. And with that information, the town can better plan capital investments and prioritize which buildings to upgrade.
Kai, am I correct in understanding that the town hall is facing capital improvements to an HVAC system and windows and weatherization?
If I remember correctly, there will be a study, I believe. There's money in the capital. There's capital money for a study of window replacements. I'm not sure about building envelope improvements, though that might also be something to be looked at. Yeah, I mean, this building definitely needs work.
And do we know what the life expectancy of the HVAC system in this building is?
I know a chiller was only installed recently, in 3 years ago. So the cooling system is okay. And I think the heating system was also replaced only fairly recently, maybe 5 years ago. So overall, the most or big components of the HVAC system are still in good condition.
Okay.
Is anybody from the capital planning committee sort of aware of or engaged with the municipal decarbonization roadmap? Or is the plan to loop them in once we have that information?
Yeah, I did not think of the capital planning committee as potential audience, but I can include them. I asked our consultants today how many presentations they would be able to give, because I was hoping to have at least one presentation of the decarbonization roadmap for the decision makers whose approval will be needed for the climate leader application. And the decision makers are the school superintendent and the select board and the town administrator. So one presentation of the decarbonization roadmap for them, but also a second one for other important stakeholders, including the Climate Action Planning Committee, Planning Department, Facilities Department, and other actors. That's what I was asking today, and I haven't gotten an answer if that's possible. But even if the consultant themselves couldn't present it, I'd be happy to present it.
Hey, Kai,
Yeah.
great news that the application is almost ready to submit. 20th, it sounds like is important in terms of the decarbonization roadmap. Any other pieces missing beside that? This is for the climate leader community
Correct.
application.
Correct. The zero emissions first policy, which would have to be approved by the select board and the school superintendent, and that's being worked on right now.
Okay. And then that's great. So let's assume application goes in, whatever, 1st of May, pick a date. Do we know how many June 30th? Okay, by June 30th. Do we know how many communities submit? Like what, obviously it's not like we win a trophy by getting this certification. It unlocks potentially some funding and some other resources. Is there any reason to think that we will not get that certification?
I've been told that whichever municipality fulfills the criteria will also become a climate leader community.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And unlike with green communities, there's no so-called designation grant. So it's not as if the moment one becomes a climate leader, one gets a pot of money. However, one becomes eligible for greater funding opportunities actually than through green communities. The technical assistance, so for design or other investigative studies, is up to $150,000, and the actual implementation funding is up to $1 million.
Yeah, I remember that from earlier discussion. That's fantastic, Alex, and just committee overall. Again, let's not count our chickens yet, but this was what we wanted with the town article, and it passed. And nice to be able to go back in front, at some point this year and say, we've obviously moved that initiative forward profoundly. So again, knock on wood, but that's fantastic.
Yeah, I'll get to the potential dark clouds gathering.
Oh no! Oh no!
But before that, another couple of items. As part of the longer term decarbonization planning, we're in the process of getting a so-called comprehensive building assessment, which is another word for an electrification study of the high school. So unlike the municipal decarbonization roadmap, this is a more in-depth study of the high school. The biggest energy consumer of the town, I think it accounts for 25% of the town's energy usage. So that's why we prioritize the high school. But we don't have any results yet, but the engineer visited the high school last week. That happened. We're in the process of getting EV charging stations, new EV charging stations at Town Hall and the Council on Aging. So sorry, we're in the process of reviewing the feasibility, and the idea would be to actually get them new EV charging stations at Town Hall and the Council on Aging. And we're about to apply for a green community competitive grant for heat pump upgrades, or VRF, variable refrigerant flow upgrades at the Council on Aging. So those are some of the shorter updates. Any questions on those?
The variable refrigerant flow upgrades. My understanding is just the modern heat pumps that perform well down to New England frigid temperatures use variable refrigerant flow to achieve that efficiency. So you're basically saying we're trying to get a new HVAC, a new set of heat pumps at the Council on Aging, and they would be this modern high efficiency type, or is it actually like a retrofit to existing heat pumps to make them more efficient?
It's a replacement of the current gas heating through heat pumps. I think it's air source heat pumps, and what a VRF, what a variable refrigerant flow system is, as opposed to heat pumps, is that it's basically the macro system of different heat pumps put together. It's unlike just one individual, or unlike a set of individual heat pumps connecting separate rooms, it's one whole macro heat pump system that can regulate in a highly efficient way the refrigerant, which transports heat between spaces, to different rooms in a way that allows for simultaneous cooling or heating, or temperature setting at different levels. Yeah. Okay. Cool. It's a cool thing once you look into it. Yeah. And then finally, the dark clouds gathering. The State House, the Massachusetts State House last week approved a so-called energy affordability bill, which included some good provisions, in my opinion, good provisions for energy affordability in the state. However, there were also some concerning cuts, which with potential ramifications for your work and my work as the energy manager. A $1 billion cut to Mass Save in the 3-year cycle of 2025 to 2027, which means effectively, out of the $4.5 billion budget that Mass Save had for 2025 to 2027, $1 billion would be cut for the remaining time until 2027. So it would be a disproportionate cut to the remainder of this year and of 2027. And there is also a clause in the current bill on cutting, on reshifting money from, and it now gets complicated, the Alternative Compliance Payment Fund, which is one of the main funding sources for the Climate Leader program. Today, I got good news from DOER. They said that despite these clauses in the bill, the immediate Climate Leader funding would not be affected. So I think that if and when Milton becomes a climate leader, hopefully by the late this year, that it could still access climate leader funding next year and the year after. However, in the longer term, this bill could have potential ramifications for the climate leader funding. And I think the bigger cuts would really be to Mass Save, which is maybe the most effective energy efficiency program run by any state in the United States. And it's being described as the main source of energy price pressures in Massachusetts. My personal opinion is that there are other far more important causes of lack of energy affordability in the state. But that's just something I think you as the Climate Action Planning Committee should have on your radar.
In what ways specifically do the cuts to mass save, are they going to affect our work and you?
From what I understand, it will not the cuts. I find this a bit hard to believe, but what is being said is that the cuts would not affect funding for heat pumps. And the reason why I find this hard to believe is that if one thinks about the numbers of $4.5 billion over 3 years, we're already halfway through. Half of $4.5 billion is $2.2 billion. So $1 billion cut to $2.2 billion leaves $1.2 billion left. And they claim that these cuts would only be to advertising as opposed to the actual energy efficiency upgrades. I don't know, but even if it was advertising, I worry that this advertising and marketing and outreach would be a heavy blow to the very current weaknesses of Mass Save, which are a too tepid outreach to lower income communities. Mass Save is disproportionately used by higher income households, by homeowners, and the program has been taking a more proactive stance to try to reach lower income households, and that might fall under the marketing term.
Has the bill been passed?
It has been passed by the Massachusetts State House. Side note, after it being, the lawmakers were only given 48 hours to review the bill. And it's a very complicated bill, I can assure you. And now it's up for review by the state Senate. So if you find the bill concerning, then it would be the state senator.
So there's time for us to inform ourselves more thoroughly and be in touch with our local senator.
I was my wife and I were in touch with our state rep. Obviously that was not effective, but it makes sense that, that committee members should really reach out to our senator.
Yeah, I'll just make a quick note that I believe there's going to be an event coming up April 9th at the State House. So legislative breakfast. And yeah, it's kind of like a joint event with MAPCs, Intercore, and Three Rivers Interlocal Council kind of communities. So everybody's going to come. It's in the morning, but essentially, I believe it's going to be like a good opportunity if you do want to voice your concerns about this bill, about any of the other bills that are going to be, that are currently being discussed right now. So that'd be something to watch out for.
When is that?
April 9th.
April 9th.
Yeah.
Is it appropriate for our committee to say something to a senator?
I don't have a vote on any kind of statement on the agenda tonight. So I think the timing is difficult for the committee to speak as a committee. But I think we're all individually, as some of the people most likely in town to dig into the details and provide informative feedback. And so I plan to carve out some time to do that personally.
I should also say that my position is actually funded by Mass Save. And I've been told that my position, the position of other municipal energy managers funded by this, would be low on the list of chopping items on the chopping block, but it's still something that has not been completely eliminated as a possibility from what I can. The cut of funding for municipal energy managers.
Okay. Thank you. That was a
Thank you for your patience and your interest.
really,
That was a dark cloud, Kai. That was a dark one. You delivered on that.
So the next item on our agenda is a vote to approve a letter of support for the EEA Planning Assistance Grant application. We've discussed our work to get this application in the last few meetings. The high level intention is to fund consulting support for our committee to engage systematically with the town staff and decision makers who you know, we really can't move from planning to implementation without their partnership and buy-in and input. Avante's joined us tonight because I'm incredibly grateful that over the last several weeks, he's really taken the reins, taken over the sort of preparatory work I had done, reaching out to MAPC and drafting project scope, and really refined it and gotten in touch with all the key staff members in town whose support we need. So I'm going to hand it over to Avante to tell us where things stand, and then we can discuss this letter of support from us, which should strengthen our application.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. So yeah, hi everyone, my name's Avante. And as I said at the beginning, I'm the Assistant Director of Planning and Community Development at the town of Milton. I have been working together with Alex on this application. Kind of started off early last month, just on a scope which we've kind of gone back and forth, helping to refine. I've kind of gotten feedback from the planning director, the DPW director as well, to help refine this, and that kind of helped with providing the basis for filling out this grant application, which, you know, if successful, would be $50,000 in planning grant funds through the Eco One Stop application. And so, yeah, I've been working on that. I have it pretty much all filled out. I think just kind of the last piece has been getting letters of support, which I thank you, Alex, for reaching out to kind of significant stakeholders for this. So we've gotten a letter of support from the planning director I got today, but we also got one from the school superintendent as well. So that's very exciting. I'm still working on getting one from MAPC, who has also been providing great feedback throughout the process on this scope and this application. I've been in communication with them to get one of the requirements for that application, which is kind of a detailed spreadsheet of tasks with a timeline and costs. So I added that in today. And so, yeah, the application's in a good spot. And so yeah, you know, me and Liz were talking the other day, and we thought like, oh, like, you know, another, you know, layer of support, which we feel like would be really beneficial to this application would of course be from the Climate Action Planning Committee, because y'all worked so hard on this draft climate action plan, and you know, you represent like residents of Milton, those with like great backgrounds in climate and environmental science. And so, yeah, I just thought that, it'd be great to have your voice and your support for this application. And that's why I requested Alex to draft and add this kind of last minute. So I apologize about that, but yeah.
Yeah, I apologize, it didn't occur to me earlier, I just figured. This primarily benefits us and enables us to do our work, so I thought, of course, they'll understand that we want it, but it never hurts to be explicit. So any questions? Or suggestions on the letter? If not, I'll entertain motions to approve the letter.
So moved.
Okay. I saw Arthur moved, and who was the second?
I'll second.
Hale, oh, you're not a voting member, so I have to get another second. Ron seconds. Okay, all in favor?
Do you need a roll call?
I suppose I do. I was just trying to move things along. Okay, Arthur,
Yes.
Stephen,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Maggie,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Alex, I vote yes. Did I miss anybody? Okay, thank you. So, we've got an authorized letter of support that we can share with you. If you want to put letterhead on, that's fine. That's how that works.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to recommend also that the letter indicate that the vote was unanimous by the attending members of the committee.
Can we get away with adding that objectively true statement into there? Wonderful. Okay. The next item on our agenda is an update from Anna on the CELT Student Fellowship opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm really excited to share about this. I think that it could really support our climate initiatives. So I shared this at the last meeting, but for those who weren't there, we've obviously had several conversations about hiring a consultant to move our work forward. But unfortunately, as we all know, consultants are very expensive. So I suggested working with a graduate student. And I ended up finding a really interesting program through my alumni network at BU School of Public Health. So the program is the Clean Energy and Environment Legacy Transition. They call it the CELT Municipal Fellowship. So it's a collaboration between Boston University, UMass Lowell, and the Healy Driscoll administration. The fellowship is fully funded by this group, and it places a student within a municipality in Massachusetts for about 20 hours per week over 6 months. I initially thought there were only 2 fellows placed during the 6-month cohort, but I am excited to report that after my introductory call with one of the project team members that I had at the end of February, the most recent cohort they had actually placed 21 fellows across municipalities in Mass. The municipalities have been really enthusiastic about the program. The person I spoke with said that of everyone who applied, they were able to match just about every municipality with a fellow. So you can request an undergrad or a graduate level fellow depending on your needs. Given the scope of the work that we have in mind, I'd probably recommend we aim for a graduate student, but we can discuss that. The EEA planning grant would really shape the scope of work if we got that. But I do believe there would be enough work for the fellow, or arguably even more work for a fellow without the grant. So I think it's a good opportunity for us. The next cohort begins in June, and the applications are reviewed on a rolling basis. The intake form is due April 17th, so about a month from now. The main requirement on our end would be identifying a town staff member to serve as the fellows supervisor. So Alex and I connected very briefly about this. We're thinking someone from the planning department. Avante, I'm happy you're here because I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And I know I sent you a note about it, but if anyone has specific questions, I can forward those to the project staff member that I'm connected with. And I'll also put the website to the fellowship program into the chat if you want to poke around at it. Open to thoughts and reflections.
I would just add that when we first started talking about this, we thought of it first as a plan B if we're not successful with the EEA planning grant funding and getting some more support in sort of systematically engaging stakeholders in town to finalize and ultimately move to implementation on the plan. I do think, given the way these timelines line up, that we have to submit this fellow intake request well before we'll hear back about the EEA planning grant. I think it would be most responsible if we had some sort of contingency. Like we've developed a streamlined scope that we should probably cross-reference against the final project scope that you've worked out with MAPC. So, have that as an option, but we should have another option for the fellow in the event that we do get the planning going.
It's really wonderful you found that fellowship opportunity, Anna. It's an agenda item I'd forgotten to bring up today because I'd seen it myself even 6 months ago, and we considered applying for it, but at the time we weren't ready. We meaning Nick Connors and Nick Milano and I. So I think now is a good time to apply for this, and it's really good. I think it would be a great project to have for the fellow to be working on the update of the climate action plan. I myself had wanted to bring this up as an agenda item to seek out project ideas, and so it's all the better that we already have a really good one. 2 project ideas that I would have had would be for the fellow to help sign up or help make sure that low-income residents, for example, at Milton Housing Authority are signed up for all the right energy rebate programs, or there's, for example, a low-income energy rate that low-income households are eligible for, but unfortunately, low-income households are disproportionately in electricity contracts from third-party suppliers, which are notoriously predatory. And so I wouldn't be surprised if also in Milton, there are especially elderly and or illiterate residents who are not getting the low rate that they're entitled to. So that's one low-hanging fruit that the fellow could help out with. Just sitting down for sessions with residents at the Milton Housing Authority for energy rate signups. Another one where the fellow could maybe help would be with the home performance contracting project, whatever that might end up be.
Meaning that like selecting a partner.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in that vein, I'm just bubbling up as we're talking. One of the strategies recommended in the climate action plan that I'm personally most excited about, because it kind of goes directly at the bulk of Milton's greenhouse gas emissions from private properties, is a electrification coaching program. So this is a model that's been popular. It's seen some success in many other municipalities in Massachusetts where volunteer coaches provide kind of unbiased peer assistance to people who are going through the process of installing heat pumps or solar panels or mass save energy efficiency projects, because they are complicated and they can be intimidating, and contractor selection is really important. So I think there's a lot of groundwork that needs to be laid to potentially launch a program like that in Milton. Something that I'd love to be working on in Sustainable Milton. We're doing some strategic planning right now as well. But bandwidth is just always the issue, right? So I think before we could launch it, I think there's some research, some well-defined research that would need to be done about like what roles do you need, what are the steps you need to take, what needs to be in place for resources. And that could be a good fellow project, and not unrelated to the thing like selecting home performance contractors, for example, would definitely be a piece of that. So I think we could probably come up with something there.
And even communications efforts more generally. In my 6 months here so far, I haven't had the time to try to communicate what I've been doing in social media or in events all that much. I mean, I've joined this committee on 3 occasions now, I believe, but there's so much more to be done on the communication front.
Absolutely. Stephen, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, and just on the communication, unless the problem has been solved, which would be great. A few months ago, we were talking about the recycling problem that we're having here in town, and I think there's a education component to that, and information, and and how you can get people from using the recycling bin as a trash can. But maybe because we were over what the contamination rate was. So I don't know. Maybe that's gotten better, Alex. I don't know, but it seemed like that's an opportunity to communicate and educate as well.
Definitely.
And,
Yeah.
and if we're looking at reaching out to the residents through the Milton Housing Authority, perhaps we can also reach out through the Milton Residents for the Elderly. So those at Winter Valley, Unquity House, even Home Inc. So they're technically not under Milton Housing Authority. But they are a vulnerable population of elderly people. And I have had the pleasure of working with Avante since he's been here, and I think he's very capable. However, I'm a little protective of him too, suggesting that he works with the fellowship. He's has a lot on his plate, and I don't want to speak for Avante, and maybe he wants to do this, but I know a lot of things are happening in the planning department, so I wouldn't want to overburden him. But that's for him and the planning director to decide of his bandwidth and capability.
Yeah, I think you framed it pretty well, Maggie. Yeah, it would definitely be a conversation I'd have with the planning director, Liz Manning. It has been floated just around our office casually, like, oh, like having like a fellow or an intern that could be useful. I'm just like, yeah, I think for the multiple reasons and ideas that were mentioned just a moment ago, like getting more capacity support could be beneficial. And so yeah, that would be definitely a conversation to have with the director. I'm seeing here on this webpage, is April 17th like the sort of deadline for this fellowship to keep in mind?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. We'll make note of that, and yeah.
So I guess that is, and that's a application that would have to come in from municipal staff. Anna?
Correct, but I'm
This
happy to
one?
help support it. What's that, Alex?
Oh, I just asked because then it's not sort of formally an action of our committee,
Mhm.
but we're free to help.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, yeah, no, that's great to hear, yeah, yeah. I'll definitely talk to
I
Liz
think
about it.
our job would be to come up with an idea so compelling that everyone's like, of course, this is a good idea, let's do it.
Yep, all ears happy to listen and, yeah. Help as much as I can, so, yeah, I'll definitely talk to Liz
The
about it.
days are excruciatingly finite, and we understand that.
Mhm. Yep, gotta be smart with your time.
I'm still learning that. Okay, so that takes us to, thank you very much, Anna, for bringing that update. I think that's exciting. That takes us to item 6, our kind of new and noteworthy cap domain updates. I think we can take this a bit at random. I know, Ron, that you've got something you wanted to discuss, so why don't you begin?
Yeah, so I passed around, I think it's part of your package. For the past couple of meetings I had with several colleagues been advocating for us to sponsor what I'm calling education and networking meetings for the 4 priority areas in our plan: conservation, buildings, transport, and what's the 4th one? Waste, excuse me. And so with some help and support from Matt, we drafted an invitation to stakeholders that includes resident or non-resident experts in conservation, representatives from interested non-governmental and private sector organizations, the Mass Department of Conservation and Recreation and Forestry, the Planning Board, and also interested community members. And so the idea behind this meeting or these series of meetings would be to gather stakeholder and public input into the proposals that are in the climate action plan, and to get additional input to refine the plan. Most importantly, I think, to build out a network of support so that people know about the Climate Action Planning Committee and our work, and hopefully to get some more targeted focus on funding these efforts. So this is a draft plan for the conservation group. I'd be interested in getting feedback, but more importantly, I'd be interested in hearing from the members of the committee connected with waste and transport and buildings, whether they would be interested and willing to do a similar meeting for their particular domain.
Well, Ron, to sort of answer your question for buildings, I've recently been in touch with an organization called Greener Youth, which is a design build firm. That's done a lot of consulting and construction work for universities and nonprofits and I guess they're spreading into municipalities now. They recently completed a geothermal conversion of Village Church in Wellesley, And I asked them if they would be interested in giving a presentation on geothermal technology and its benefits and, economic advantages to a group of citizens, town officials, and committee members, and they said they would. So that's at least one organization that I think we could schedule for buildings.
Yeah, but,
Can I just clarify? So what you're suggesting is a presentation should focus on the recommendations of the climate action plan
that's right,
in a more overview sense,
in the 4 areas,
with an emphasis on the sort of priority actions that we've,
that's right.
so. Now, we haven't been updating the draft climate action plan with great velocity over the recent months because there's been a lot going on. I include myself in that. And it's still a draft, so it can still change, but definitely want to keep these anchored in the things that are in the plan, I think.
Yeah, I mean, in the conservation part of the plan, if this meeting takes place, we would want to update that. I mean, there are updates in that particular section that would need to be done to present at the meeting. So I assume that each of the 4 areas would need to update, but I wouldn't want to go through a process of updating the entire plan and then reviewing it before going ahead with the meeting.
I completely agree with doing these. I haven't been able to take first steps towards preparing any materials because I've been busy with other stuff. I do anticipate that the EEA planning grant assistance would support activities like this.
Yeah,
Maybe with more of an initial focus on internal town stakeholders and the public meetings a little later in the process. So that one thing, I think there's kind of a difference in overhead and framing of the materials if you're gonna make it a public meeting versus like stakeholder meetings where we're primarily interested in getting their feedback to refine the plan. I mean, either way you want feedback to refine the plan.
yeah,
Something to think about. It might be easier to have the stakeholder meetings in public so that you can kind of kill 2 birds with one stone. So,
yeah.
I mean, I'm supportive of this at a
Yeah.
high level for sure.
I'd like to hear maybe from Arthur and Stephen.
Yeah, I can go. I think it's a good idea. I would be interested in having sort of the stakeholder to get the feedback. And I'm looking at the calendar, maybe it's too early, but Arbor Day is coming up the end of next month, as a way of kicking that off. But I would welcome having a forum where we could talk about transportation, electrification, the other issues that we've been talking about in transportation, access to transit. I think without going down the T route, but I think it would be valuable from my perspective.
Thank you. Stephen, any comments from you? Are you there?
But do you mean Steve just spoke? So
Oh, I thought that was Arthur.
no, that was Steve.
Oh, sorry.
Arthur, you're muted.
My wife loves it when I'm muted. We'd be happy to join that. We had a discussion, Kim, at the March 9th meeting of the Waste Management Committee, a working group rather, on this, and recognize the value of community engagement. Kim, do you want to add some comments from that there's certainly much to talk about. Going with, I wanted to do two things, if I may, just going back to a point that Stephen made earlier about the contamination rates. We do not know if there's been any change in that, the most recently planned audit was put to the wayside because of the snowstorms that we had. We all know how delayed collections were during that period. So after the company settles down, they will do an audit and we'll have the most recent information from that. But there were some findings from a pilot that was introduced through our environmental coordinator. And this is a pilot of going out and taking a look into some of the recycling bins throughout the town on a random sampling basis. And it was found that there are considerable numbers of instances where residents are unfortunately bagging their recyclables and putting them in their blue bins. And of course, that has to be separated out by waste management or contractor, and the costs of doing that management, of course, get assigned, first of all, affect the contamination rate, and then, of course, will ultimately affect the cost rates assigned to the town of Milton. But going back to this point about community engagement, I'll just add that we mentioned a couple of meetings ago that a corporation called Ridwell came to Milton voluntarily, held a meeting at the public library about additional ways in which recyclables materials can be collected and processed by homeowners voluntarily wishing to do so. About 22 citizens in the town just showed up at that, which suggests that there's an appetite for holding such a meeting. Kim? Sorry to catch you with a glass of water.
Oh, that's okay. I know. Yeah, just I think we talked about a lot of different ways that we could reach out to the townspeople to like update them for in case they're like new to town or maybe just don't understand how the recycling works, just to educate more people. Like maybe having like some of us go to the farmers market sometimes or have a table there or some of the town concerts. So just looking at ways to like reach out to the people in town to explain how the recycling system works. But I think it'd be great to have a some sort of educational, sort of seminar like this and reach out to more people that way.
And related to this is the fact that we have many more new people coming to the town. And we've also found out from our work that some people have asked whether or not there can be larger black trash bins. And this is probably most likely due to the fact that they don't know where to get stickers. So one of the things that we want to do is be sure on the site to indicate all of the vendors, and there are at least 6 of them in the town where people can get trash stickers to put on their plastic bags. So that's just one element of what would be in the communication process. It would have to be sustained on an ongoing basis, well beyond hosting a one-time or an annual workshop. But I wanted to, before leaving the microphone, so to speak, go back to the Conservation Commission or Committee topic, working group topic, because there's much going on in that arena pertaining to the marshlands in Milton. There's a wetland initiative by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for the restoration of the salt marshes. This may have been referenced in an earlier meeting, and Milton is submitting as of tomorrow, I believe, an application with the Neponset River Watershed Association for a grant to be working on the 30 plus acres of Milton marshland in very vulnerable area down toward Cortlandt Circle and Riverside Avenue, in conjunction also with the city of Quincy, which owns marshland going out to Harriet Avenue, which approaches Sagamore Creek, for those of you who may be familiar with that area. And I spent Monday at the University of Massachusetts, Boston, which has a significant environmental program and which hosted a Massachusetts Coastal Relocation Workshop agenda, which was quite startling and profound, not only talking about the rising sea level that's coming in and the measures that are going to affect communities like Milton, but also the fact that the town's going to have to be looking at what other communities are exploring, and that is bylaws that relate to resiliency and bylaws that relate to property relocation due to sea level rise and other types of flooding. It won't be just in the marshlands. It's going to be along waterways and communities that are outside of the saltwater marshland areas. Just to add those, Ron, for your thinking as you're looking at what agenda items you might have for communication in your conservation working groups efforts.
Matt, do you have anything to add?
All good feedback. Yeah, I think the format and the objectives of the meeting will be important to discuss before we reach out. Again, everything from a pre-read, bring your comments, let's talk about them, to, we're presenting to them and then getting feedback after. These things are all really important that I think we just need to work through vis-a-vis the objectives of the meeting. What needs to happen between now and then, and what are the expected outcomes after the meeting? But all good otherwise.
Yeah, I'd like to see, I think as a first step, the drafts of content. What do we want to present? In these meetings, make sure they're sort of aligned with the existing plan appropriately, and the rough agenda for the meetings
So
figured out.
that's good. But can everybody agree to, like, by the time of the next meeting, bring their revised content?
I can't commit to that, but I do intend to. I said at the last meeting that I would produce a draft, and I still intend to do that.
Okay, great. Arthur and Stephen, can you look at what you've already drafted? It's in the plan, and make any revisions that you think need to be made and share them with us by the time of the next meeting?
Revisions to the plan or talking points or
Revisions to
slides?
their component of the plan. So
Yep.
for Arthur, it would be the waste management component of the plan. For Stephen, it would be the transportation.
Maybe I'm confused, Ron. Sorry to jump in here. I thought we were just focusing on the conservation point of the plan for the meeting, for the outreach.
Conservation is an example of what I'm hoping all four committees can do over the course of, say, 6 to 8 month period. The conservation one
Is the pilot.
What?
Well,
which would serve as kind of a pilot, perhaps, for some of the other
each working group
committees.
needs to drive this forward independently.
Yeah,
I'll say that. And if conservation has more momentum, you shouldn't feel like you have to wait for everybody else to catch up.
yeah. I mean, I just don't want to go ahead with conservation thing. I think there's some value in promoting these as a series of meetings that would happen, not back to back, but over, say, a 6 to 8 month period.
It may be difficult to be that coordinated about it, just from,
Really?
yeah, I mean, we can try, but
I mean, like if we did one in April, someone else couldn't do one in June and someone else can do one in August.
I will say, real deadlines do help things move along, but fake deadlines not so much, right?
Oh,
So
then, yes.
I haven't been able to get to this but I've been doing a lot.
Yeah.
So I will do it
Just
when
to follow up, if I may, on the calendar you mentioned at our meeting where we discussed this, Ron, we suggested avoiding the summer months and uh, the midwinter month of December as times for
I'm
this to
holding
occur.
on.
Just
That's
pass
just
that along. But if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
Kim, we could put this on our agenda for our April 13th meeting and see what we come out with as an outline or a product, and then bring that back to the later meeting that month
That
of
would be
the
great.
Climate Action Planning Committee.
Yeah, so,
I do think if part of the preparation for these meetings is making significant changes to the climate action plan, then we should bring those back through the committee to give feedback on.
yeah, but what I'm suggesting is we do that by component. So if Arthur says that he can review the waste management component at his April meeting. And for the conservation group, we can do something also to revise our component of the plan by the April meeting of this group. And we'd have at least two of the four committees with a revised component that could be presented and reviewed.
Yeah, and just candidly, it's the two most active committees, right? You guys actually meet.
Okay,
There have been no buildings working group meetings because it's just me and I guess Dale.
Yeah.
We're not organized yet, right? So
Yeah.
I think, I highly encourage you to do this.
Yeah.
And when I solicit agenda topics next month, I really hope to see you put that on there,
Yeah.
but I can't commit to
that's okay, buildings can
being the
be
driver on it.
next winter, okay? But if we can do conservation, waste and transport
Right,
by the fall,
I agree with
That
you,
would be good.
ideal to do it
yeah,
sooner,
Yeah.
or to do them close together and repeatedly,
yeah,
but let's not let the perfect get in the way of the good.
yeah.
Arthur?
Mr. Chairman, it seems that there are two topics on the table with respect to this. One is having the information sessions, which I'm assuming are going to be based upon our current subsections of the plan, like the waste management section. And second is revising or updating the plans. From the public information section, we would have input from the public that would help to do the latter. And at the same time, we agreed at our meeting this month that we would pass out a review of the waste management plans at a number of communities like Milton or in the Milton area to get updated information that would ultimately go into any subsequent revision of the waste management working group section of the climate action plan. That was what we were thinking as a logical sequence, if that meets your approval.
I think what I was saying is that I think it's important that when we do a meeting saying, here's the waste component of Milton's climate action plan, the summary we provide align with the currently approved draft that we've got, right? If we want to make major revisions to it before doing that, and that's a totally reasonable thing to do. We've had nearly a year to learn and think about it since we've actually voted on a revision to the draft. We'd want to coordinate to make those revisions, review them here and approve them before we go. And what I don't want to do is have public meetings where we say, here's the waste plan, and it doesn't look anything like the plan on our website,
Well,
right?
yeah, I agree, but I'm assuming, at least speaking for the conservation plan, that whatever modifications we would make build on what's already in the plan.
Sure.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think the first step is to draft content.
yeah,
This is roughly what we want to say. And I think we can,
yeah,
we don't have to have a big formal vote. If it is aligned, just with more detail,
yeah.
more examples, then you can
Yeah.
just move forward, yeah.
And then I kind of like Arthur's idea that if we can present that kind of update of the original draft to these stakeholders and other people interested in the topic at a meeting, and then that feedback gets built into a totally revised plan.
Yeah, and I just want to invite you guys again, because we haven't talked about this in a while, like, I have the last time we approved a draft, I think it was in June, and it's on the website, right? I have a living document version of the plan in a SharePoint. And if you want to make edits or propose edits, just reach out to me. We can figure out what's the right workflow given your software and computer setup. And I'm willing to do it differently depending on what you're comfortable with. If you want to get me edits, I can work them into kind of a master
But my
document that we'll ultimately review at some point.
my suggestion is not to go back right now to tinker with the total plan, but just focus on these individual components, make some revisions based on the original plan, present them at these meetings, get feedback from the stakeholders, and then do a final revision that goes into your SharePoint.
Sure.
So Alex, it would be helpful if you put that updated on the website. So I printed off the draft just today, and that was going to be one of my questions was, has it been updated? So
Not officially.
yeah, so I think it might be helpful, for us committee members, but also the public, if you put that, made it accessible to everybody. To Ron's point, we know it's not final, but people should sort of be able to see where we stand on it. If
Well,
before,
I don't think that the public needs access to everybody's draft. Like if you're just tinkering with it, I don't know that we want to make it public at that level of, because at that point it's just an individual committee member doing some thinking, right? It hasn't been reviewed in a public meeting.
I agree with that.
So
okay, so
what we've done.
I should just focus then on what's on the website.
And there haven't been any material changes, just candidly, since the last time we updated it and put it on the website.
Okay.
And also, right, if we do any collaborative editing of that document over the coming months, we have to be careful about not, what's the word, deliberating in that document, right? So that's why I just say, so far, I haven't had a lot of folks reaching out to me saying like, I want to edit that document. I invite you to consider yourself co-authors of it. But I'm managing the integration. So if you have a segment you want to add or a segment you want to edit, just reach out to me and we can figure out a workflow for that. But no, right now, like the thing that's on the website is pretty close to the latest that we've got.
Okay. Got it.
Okay, we're 12 minutes past our our scheduled ending time. So the final agenda topic is just to quickly discuss our next meeting date, which, following our normal cadence, would be April 16th at 6 p.m. Are there any major concerns with that meeting date at this moment? Okay, so for now, we'll assume that that's when we'll meet. Any final comments before entertain a motion to adjourn? All right, I want to thank you all for a really substantive meeting. That was exciting.
Kai was great.
Yeah, he's been working hard, and there's a lot to report. Great. Anybody want a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Ron moves to adjourn. Do I have a second? Oh, come on now, let's get a second.
I'll second.
Okay, Kim seconds. I'm not going to do a roll call vote this time. All in favor? Let the record show that all were in favor of adjournment, and good night. Thank you very much for being here.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
All right.
Bye.
Good night.